All right, looks like it's the top of the hour. You want to get started, Dave?
Yes. All right. Hello, everyone, and welcome to the combined SUIT virtual interim meeting. Just a reminder, this is an official meeting of the IETF, so the NITWell applies here. Please let us know if you have any questions relating to the NITWell. A couple reminders for this meeting. There's an expectation that that everyone extends respect and courtesy to other participants. Our purpose here is to devise solutions to the problems that we're working to address. As always, we're always looking for individuals that are willing to step forward to help advance the work of the group. For this meeting, make sure your audio and video is muted unless you're presenting or commenting as part of a discussion. If you have a headset, it'll help reduce echo and other problems during the meeting. So for today, we're automatically logging who's participating using MeetEcho, but we do need some volunteers. Can we get a couple of people to help us with note taking? I didn't have the Etherpad link, but you can access that in MeetEcho, and I'll drop that into chat as well.
The top, the blue one with the pencil, will take you right there.
I just dropped the link into the chat.
The Etherpad and try to take some notes.
Thanks. That's Michael?
Yes.
Thank you. Anyone else?
This is Russ. I'll back him up.
Perfect. Thanks, Russ. And if we could have someone watch the chat as well, and represent any directions to speak up there, that would be great. Any volunteers?
Maybe since this is a combined meeting, team chairs, anything else that you want to add in here, or either of you want to volunteer?
Can you guys hear me?
Yes.
Yeah, I don't think I have anything to add. I figured we could just cross-reference the SUIT notes as minutes. My only note is I do have to drop at the top of the hour, but I think Pidu is on as well.
Would you be willing to watch the Jabber Room, the chat for the first hour?
Yeah, I can watch the Jabber. Just note I'll be dropping off at the top of the hour. So.
Okay, that's fine. Dave, would you be willing to cover the last 30 minutes?
Yeah, I'll watch the chat.
Oh, okay. That'd be great. All right, so thank you. Our agenda for today, we wanted to spend this time talking through any remaining comments or work that is needed to advance a number of different publications that we've been working on. We have the SUIT manifest format, which is currently undergoing AD review by Roman. We have the SUIT manifest extensions for multiple trust domains. We've completed a working group last call but we're working on revising that draft. I believe that's been that revision has been posted. We have the management extensions for suit manifests. We've also completed a working group last call. We haven't received any feedback on that. So unless we hear otherwise, we're probably going to want to ship that document. We have firmware encryption with suit manifests. We're completing a working group last call on that today. I'm shepherding that one. I'm working on a shepherd review, which I hope to get in maybe later today, worst case tomorrow, so that those comments can be considered as part of the working group last call. But there's been quite a bit of work on this draft as well to address comments so far. So many thanks to the authors there. I'll verify as part of my shepherd review that all of the comments have been addressed. We have secure reporting of update status. The authors believe that the document is ready for working group last call. We're looking to see if there's any other comments on that draft that need to be worked out before starting working group last call. So we'll be talking about that. We have the MTI algorithms for suit manifests that also completed a working group last call. We haven't gotten a lot of review of this document, so we're hoping to get some additional comments on that. And we have the TEEP protocol, which also completed working group last call. The TEEP chairs, any comments on this draft?
I know Nancy wanted this to be during the first hour instead of during the last half hour. This is the agenda bash. We want to rearrange stuff. And Brendan, the thing that I commented on was the TEEP protocol should come after the MTI, right? The one that's the top one on the slide should come after that, just because that's how the slide was constructed. And I see, Brendan, when you submitted the slides in your title, I didn't open them up. Your title, you put MTI first in the title. Does that mean that your slide deck, you put MTI first?
That's correct. In the slide deck, MTI is first.
Okay, so
that'll be helpful.
Yeah, and I don't think we have separate slides for the manifest today, correct?
I believe that Hannes has submitted something that contains detail on the manifest.
Okay, I haven't seen the slides posted yet, so maybe, or if it is, I didn't see them. They may not have been proposed in the data tracker, just an email, so we'll have to look for those.
No, I sent them to you. I emailed them to you.
Okay, we'll check email. All I'm saying is
The
that
latest version.
I think MTI and TEEP protocol should move up on the agenda, I think, based on Nancy and Brendan's things. And so whether they go immediately before or after manifest, if we don't have the slides for manifest open, then maybe we should start with 7 and 8. I don't know. We just want to make sure we get to 7 and 8 within the first hour, right? It doesn't have to be first. So
just to be clear, I have managed to rearrange my schedule. I'm here for the duration.
excellent, right? But Nancy's not, so
No,
it'd
indeed.
just be nice to get through 7 and 8 before Nancy has to drop in 50 minutes.
Yeah, so if there are no concerns, let's start with MTI and then TEEP, and then we'll complete the rest of the agenda after.
Appreciate it.
All right. And then if we have time left at the end, we can discuss any other business. So with that, let's jump in on MTI. Let me get those slides up real quick. Bear with me just a moment.
There it is.
All right.
All right.
Take us away.
So these are largely that there was a substantial discussion on the list following 117. One of the key observations was that the AES CTR draft is progressing through COSI, the COSI working group. So we have gone and replaced the references to AES 128 GCM with AES 128 CTR. There was some discussion on the list as well during that period that AES CBC should be avoided. We don't use AES CBC, so that I think is fine. I also, I've added an additional algorithm identifier, or sorry, I've extended the way that the algorithm identifiers are constructed because they weren't exactly complete. So, you know, -7, 1 tells you a little bit, but -16, -7, -25, you know, as it goes, tells you each of the algorithm IDs that's in use with a particular profile. So that seemed more appropriate, and I hope that that's not going to anger the TEEP folks. So we'll find out about that in a moment, I'm sure. Then the SUIT PQC future profile has been changed to use AES 256 in both of its, well, both in key wrap and in encryption. And the point of this was that HSS LMS signatures are so big already that the larger key is basically irrelevant. And there wasn't a 256-bit AES profile to start with. This seemed like the appropriate place to put it. So that was a request by Russ, I think, originally. I may have that wrong. I think it was Russ. So that I've put that in now. And I also noticed that all of the profiles we were using thus far stayed away from ED 25519 and Cha-Cha Poly, which seems to be a popular combination for IoT devices. So I've added that as an additional current profile so as not to alienate existing IoT users. I believe that all of the known issues with SUIT MTI are now resolved, bar one, and that is purely CDDL editorial. And what that is that there should probably be a single unifying SUIT COSI profiles structure in the CDDL. And you'll see that come up later when we talk about SUIT report. And that is it for SUIT MTI. I think that now, you know, if I tack that one bit of CDDL in, I think we're done. Oh, it was not evidently Russ who had proposed that. I forget who it was, but in any case, there appeared to be support on the list.
Oh, we have Hannes in queue. Go ahead.
Yeah, I have posted a mail to the list about this related to the CTR aspect because it came up in a private message sent around by Akira about the deep usage. And I think for deep, GCM is definitely better for these trusted applications as a way to protect them rather than CTR. So I believe we would really need one version with GCM and the other one version with, for example, the CTR and the MTI algorithms. What do you think about that, Brent?
I think that's fine as long as we limit it, because I don't want to get I don't want the combinatorial explosion that we are likely to head towards if we don't limit how many options we take on. So if there's one particular profile that looks like it's the right one for TEEP, then let's get it in there. Otherwise, yeah, I don't want to do it that way and have it all explode, because that kind of defeats the purpose of an MTI document.
Do you want to respond back to Brendan's comments?
Yeah, yeah, I see it more as a MTI for sort of a classical IoT devices versus and sort of like the deep use case, which is focusing on a higher end devices. So in that sense, I think it would be fine. But I let Akira also, who's also in the queue, speak about that, because he brought this issue up.
One of the other options is for TEEP to define its own profile. Essentially the same concept as the SUIT MTI, but with a TEEP specific profile.
Akira, go ahead.
That would be an option.
Akira, go ahead.
Okay. Yes. CTR is it's not only, but for encryption, and GCM is able to use for the authentication too. So maybe, yeah. How about having inside MTI the usage for the encryption? It's the profile is for CTR, and with authentication, then it will be GCM, and having two type of the profile depend on the usage.
I'm not sure I understand. Maybe you can explain what I'm missing. There's already a signature on the data. What benefit does the GCM validation give you? I mean, maybe that's a discussion we need to take to the list.
Yeah.
If this isn't the right time to talk about it, but yeah, I guess I'd just like to understand what benefit we're getting out of it.
Let's jump to Dave. Akira, if you have other thoughts, if you could jump back in the queue after him.
So I don't have a strong enough knowledge of the two to have an opinion as to which one is right. And so if you recommend the CTR instead of the GCM, then no objection. But I did want to share that there are two things that the TEEP protocol uses this for. And of course, I agree with the point that we want to have, like for IoT devices, as few as possible, right? You don't want to have one thing for TEEP and one thing for RATs and one thing for SUIT and try to fit all three different things into, say, a constrained device, right? That doesn't make sense, right? So you want as much unification as possible. So the two things that the TEEP protocol references using whatever it is for, whatever the algorithm suite is, right? Pick the one, right, and use it for. And it says this is what the TEEP agent uses when it wants to send SUIT reports. And number two, what it wants to use when it sends an EAT.
Yep.
Okay. This is not about what goes in the manifest, which is the third one, right? About what uses the manifest. So those are the three different things, two on the sending end, one on the receiving end, right? And to say what is the right one for all three purposes, because TEEP would probably defer to SUIT's recommendation as long as the understanding is this applies to SUIT reports, potentially manifests, and EATs. So just wanted to share that.
As it happens, I have updated the SUIT report security considerations referencing this. I would argue that the SUIT report, particularly if it's being used for attestation, which I don't believe it is in TEEP, but particularly if it is, the signature is critical. So GCM is irrelevant in that case. When it comes to what was the other one? It was the SUIT, the EAT, right? Again, with an EAT, because it's being used for attestation, the signature is critical, so the use of GCM is probably irrelevant. So that's essentially how we've gotten where we are today. We have signed payloads, and as a result, the use of GCM doesn't matter quite so much. And I think we're currently, like, I'm happy to change that, but I want to understand why I'm changing it. Does that make sense?
Makes sense to me.
Akira, you're still in queue. Do you have other thoughts?
Not really. Just if we're going to have both GCM and CTR, the CTR is right now in it's represent -16, -7, -25, and -65534. If it's for the new way for the GCM, it will be -16, -7, -25, and 1. So
Yep.
That's all. Yeah.
Nancy, go ahead. Nancy, you're up.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Yes.
Sorry, having trouble with my microphone. I just wanted to relay on the chat. Michael mentioned he couldn't take notes since he wasn't understanding Akira's suggestion. So just wanted to make sure that perhaps Akira, you could capture that in the notes.
I think I captured it, but check it.
Okay. All right. That's all I had.
Note is fine.
Great, thank you. All right, any other comments on this draft? So just to confirm, there's a discussion that we need to take to the list?
Yeah, it's whether we need to introduce a GCM profile for TEEP. And again, I'd love to hear the arguments for doing that. And then let's get it included. But let's hear the arguments first.
Yeah, let's not say take it to the list until after the next presentation, just because there's a slide on this that this discussion had to happen first for. And it's not going to be very enlightening. I'm just saying there's already another 2 minutes pushed on the agenda. So
fair enough. Okay, so we should then maybe defer the question as to whether all known issues are resolved until at least after that conversation. All right. So let me switch over to the TEEP presentation. All right, and Dave, are you presenting this?
Yep.
All right, go ahead.
All right, draft 16, next slide. Yeah, so just as a reminder, this has already gone through working group last call. We have a document shepherd write-up. We raised 2 issues at Hackathon 117 and posted a draft that referenced those 2. And so we're basically dealing with any other issues that get filed as they get filed while we're waiting for the dependencies to progress, because you see quite a number of the ones that I think 4 of the documents that from SUIT are normative dependencies. So next. I think I got a slide on that, and here they are. So here's the list of normative dependencies, and they're all farther along or as far along as the TEEP protocol, the last 2 being the tail end, right? So MTI, which we just talked about, and SUIT report, which we'll talk about shortly. The hope is that they're all getting to the IESG before November so that we can discuss any AD review and IETF last call stuff. Would be great if we can discuss those November meetings. So that's the goal. So next slide. All right, so I'm going to talk about what changed since the last time that we met in San Francisco. Next. Okay, so there are two things that we presented at IETF 117 that came up at the hackathon. We had an implementary agreement there, and we had, we believe, working group consensus that didn't change after the meeting. And so everything that was done for those two was presented in the meeting and made it into the draft. And so I don't need to talk about further since we talked about that at length at the last IETF, and we just did what we showed. So next slide. Okay. Then Hannes raised a point that says, this is an editorial one, that says, you know, how is replay protection prevented? And we should have a discussion that just explains that, right? And so we added the paragraph that's on the screen into the security consideration section, right? There's nothing normative in it. It's just explaining how the rest of the draft works by saying how replay protection is provided or not for each of the different messages, right? And so I'm going to just leave it up there for a second. And so if you haven't read it yet, do a quick read through right now. But this is brand new text that the working group hasn't seen before. But if you look at the diffs between 15 and 16, this is the main diff other than what we actually presented on the screen at IETF in San Francisco. So I'm just going to pause for a second to allow people to read it. So give me 15 seconds here. Main point is there is nothing normative in here. It's all things that should be obvious from somebody that understands the rest of the spec. But if somebody is looking for replay protection, it's just a summary in the threat model that's in there. Covers a whole bunch of different threats in the security consideration section. So this one is new. All right. If I don't see any hands up, then go on to the next. Okay. So new issues raised since then that were just raised in the last, 2 weeks. So this is Ken's ones. And I know, Ken, you're on here. And so feel free to get into the queue if you want to discuss anything more than what's on the slide. So, all right. So the first one is that we talked about EATs and suit reports that are created by the TEEP agent and that are processed by the TAM and so on. And then in one of the ones that we discussed at 117 and made it into draft 16, we added the notion that you could require the TAM to attest before you give, say, secret data off to the TAM. And that's, an option that TEEP will support. And so we put that into there about attestation. But what it neglected, as Ken pointed out, is it doesn't mention, say, suit reports, because if you were to use suit reports in attestation, like Brennan said that, you don't have to use your reports in attestation, but if you really wanted to, you could, right? And so do we want to allow or disallow the use of things like suit reports? All right, clearly EATs if you want to have attestation, but should you allow suit reports? I don't know. And so it does not mention those. There's a particular section that talks about sending them, and it's that whole section, including EATs, implies that it is only TEEP agent to TAM direction. And so while we fixed the wording of some other sections, we didn't make the wording of this one sort of a agnostic wording. As a reminder to those in TEEP, we changed things like TAM and TEEP agent to TEEP implementation, just for any paragraphs that could be in either direction. And so Ken pointed out a section that needs to happen here. And so that makes perfect sense to me. And I think we should just do that because it doesn't break anything. It just makes it be more applicable if you want to do that in the other direction too. Okay, if I don't see any hands up, I'll go on because I think that one is pretty straightforward because it's just applying what we already talked about to another section that we missed before in draft 16. Okay, there's no questions, no hands up, then let's go on to the next slide. All right, so the next question is, remember that list of all the normative references. Ken asks, do we need the suit report document to actually be normative? And so Ken, the top 2/3 of this is actually Ken's literal quote in the issue, right? So you could put a suit report into the MESRES claim of EAT. And so does that mean that we need to put anything, or can we remove it from, you can see option 1, option 2, and option 3. Remove suit reports option from all messages, which means the only place you can put it is inside of an EAT, inside of a TEAP message. You can't put it in parallel to that. Option 2 would be to remove the suit reports option from query request and query response, but maybe leave it in some other messages. And number 3 is leave things the way they are. And so I wanted to repeat my response in there, which, I wanted to repeat the working groups discussion we had before, at least from my recollection. The rationale for the current state is the following. When the attestation payload contains evidence, the attestation payload is opaque and goes to the verifier. In other words, if you're using the background check model, right? If you're using the background check model, then the attestation payload never goes to the TAM, right? It's completely opaque, right? It just goes off to the verifier. And if you were to say the only way to get the suit report is through the evidence in the background check model, then that means you're introducing a requirement that the verifier, which you might not have control over, has to copy the stuff from the evidence into the attestation report. And that is an extra dependency that we didn't want. And so that is why it's in parallel, because the destination of the suit report is the TAM, whereas the destination of the evidence is the verifier. And so that's the rationale for option 3. But Ken, if you want to bring up anything, because I'm saying I think we had consensus on this before, but if you have new implementation experience or something like that, then we can discuss, is it worth changing based on new learnings? So.
Kieran.
Oh, I still have this. Yes, this was not only about having suit report redundant in the TEAP message and also inside EAT. It was about when we making a draft, I run and can always run the CDDL syntax test, and the suit report is still having a syntax error. So was yeah, and then Ken thought moving the suit report into the EAT will solve the passing the syntax test for the TEAP protocol draft. But so I talked with him, and for me it's okay just having suit report in the TEAP message, because that's how we were discussing for a very long time for the historically for the making the TEAP message. So my thought is having a suit report inside the TEAP message is perfectly fine, and making as a informative is might be okay. But that's all I have my thought. Yes, nothing.
Okay, so you're saying option 3, but making sure that the CDDL example syntax is correct.
Yes.
Okay. If there's any issues there, we'll have to update that and make sure it matches the latest in the suit report document, as the suit report document keeps
and just to
as it
clarify
prepares for
that
RFC.
Do we believe that the error in the CDDL is on the TEAP side, not the suit report side?
Yes, the TEAP protocol has an example section which has an example suit report in it, which would be applicable to TEAP.
Okay. I just wanted to make sure there wasn't an action to take for the suit report.
No, it just means that, like, if the suit report document ever makes a change in any way, then the TEAP document has to match if the example suit report that would apply to TEAP would then change, right? And so this is just keeping the two documents in sync as they evolve. So
perfect, thanks.
I think we did have a discussion, I'm thinking it was like a year ago, about if we have a TEAP specific suit example, then which document should a TEAP specific suit example go in? Should it go in a TEAP document or in a suit document? And I think at the time, like a year ago, I think we said put it in the TEAP document, because it could have gone either way. And I think that was the choice that we made. And so that's why it's in here now.
Anyone else want to express a preference relative to one of these options?
Okay. If not, then I'm going to claim that the consensus continues to be option 3, and that maybe Akira, if you're willing to take the action item to make sure that the CDDL is correct, since you've been doing that so far.
Just Brendan, go ahead.
Hey, I just wanted to say that there should not be a faulty CDDL and suit report. So I'm going to make sure that there isn't, and hopefully that'll resolve the issue.
Yep. Okay. Great, thanks.
Great. Can we also record in the notes that option 3 was the preference? Oh yeah, I see it.
Okay. And if it's not there already, record that I'm asking Akira if he can take the action item to make sure that the TEEP documents example validates. And that's just because Akira's been doing that all along. So, okay, we can go on to the next slide then. All right. This is the one that I said in the last presentation we had to come up, and then we had 2 more minutes on this one. Okay, so this one is Ken filed the fact that GCM changed to CTR, and TEEP needs to reflect that. And so Ken is proposing that we just replace all uses of GCM with CTR. And so this is why this presentation had to be after the previous one, because now that you've had the other discussion, the proposal from the TEEP implementers is to replace GCM with CTR. Are there any objections? So this, Brennan, no, we don't know of any reason to not do this. I think you articulated reasons why it's much, much better. So this is just any call for objections to doing this replacement.
We should note that there are no objections.
Just because we have a couple of implementers on the call here, right? Between Ken, Isobe-san, myself. I don't see Ming, but otherwise, I think all the other known implementers are on the call here, except for Ming.
Ken, go ahead.
Oh, can you hear me?
Yeah.
Yes.
Yep. For implementing perspective, currently I'm using tcose library and it doesn't support. I don't know, but AES CDR mode, so I have to check it. So yeah, I think it now supported, but I'm not sure. So let me check. So I think either one is okay, I think.
Great, thank you.
Going down the queue, I use tcose too, so same question, but I expect other people in the queue will answer it. So,
Hannes, go ahead.
Yeah, it's not supported because we just defined it, like we just worked on it, and so the availability in libraries may be a little may not be great. The other thing is, so in general, the attitude towards these confidentiality only ciphers is, as some of you have seen on the mailing list, is not great. So I think we should. It would raise some eyebrows if we use that sort of as a preferred over GCM, even though we include the signature on top of the whole thing. It's definitely worthwhile to think about it twice, in my opinion, even though I can't see an attack either.
I'll just comment, at least from my perspective as an implementer, since I also use tcose. The tcose didn't support things that we already put into TEEP protocol in the past, and we're trying to get tcose adding them. Things like the ECGSA with cose sign, right? It didn't support that, and last hackathon was the first time we were able to experiment with that, right? It took a while. I don't think we should make protocol decisions based on a particular cose implementation, right? And so that's why I don't consider it a blocker. But Anyway, I just wanted to pass
Yeah.
that on.
Just to touch on Hannes's comments too, is there a plan to implement this either before IETF 118 or during the hackathon?
Yeah, so, well, I have worked with Lawrence on all the other encryption functionality as well, so we could obviously implement that too. So that shouldn't be the showstopper, at least for tcozy. Not sure about other libraries though.
Yeah, but we should have an implementation if we're going to advance the draft.
Oh, sure.
That's why
Yeah.
I was asking.
Yeah, I think we should push to have it be implemented before or at the hackathon or whatever, so we can get some implementation experience. But like I said, I don't consider that to be a blocker, but that's my opinion. But I am an implementer, and I do have the same dependency that Ken mentioned. So. Next.
Great.
Who else is in
I
the
think
queue?
Brendan was in the queue.
Yes. So just two notes. The first one is that AES GCM is AES CTR. So as far as making AES CTR payloads, just delete the tag. When it comes to verifying them, of course, it's more complex, and it depends on your library, how it handles a non-verification. The other aspect is that the discussions about whether or not you should use AES CTR were extensive on the COSY list. And there was a consensus at the end. And the consensus was that for the particular use case of SUIT, it made perfect sense. It's just that the particular use case of SUIT was not the common use case. And as a result, there was a lot of reluctance in the community to have this particular mode floating around. Now, given that this is under the auspices of SUIT and that we have that archive to point people at, I hope that this will be okay.
Yeah, and I'll just reiterate that it's not just SUIT; it's SUIT plus TEEP plus SUIT plus TEEP plus rats.
So the point here is that there's broader consensus around around this.
Mm-hmm.
Great. Akira? Akira dropped out. Russ?
Yeah. Is my
I
voice working?
wanted to add on to what Brendan said about CCM and GCM is you're not supposed to return any plain text if the integrity check fails. And so the libraries that do all that are structured so as to comply with that part of the spec. And so the ability to break a image up into chunks is an important aspect here, and that doesn't fit with a GCM and CCM.
Okay. Those all sound like good reasons to just make the change as Ken proposed. It did look to me like Akira was trying to say something. So.
Yeah, go ahead, Akira, if you have a comment.
Yes. Isn't yes, honestly, initially when we were writing which algorithm to use in the TEEP message was there was no other draft specifying using which algorithm to use for the IoT or embedded usage, and that's why yes, I jumped on MTI SUIT MTI draft when what was coming out, and we going to have which AES or ECDSA or EDDSA to use in the for the SUIT or IoT device, then deleting the what we're writing in the TEEP message will be redundant. So I thought it might be good to delete in the TEEP side and then only refer an MTI SUIT MTI side. So I don't really have more further preference for me. if it's going to work for the world.
Okay. So what I haven't heard is I haven't heard objections, unless I missed them, to the authors or the editors of the T protocol spec making the change that Ken proposes here. So we can ask again on the list, but here I've maybe heard of implementation questions and can we get stuff done and so on. But I've only heard technical reasons why to make the change, and so I think we can go ahead and do this in the next one unless people object. So.
Indeed, we should add that there were no objections in the notes.
In the call.
And then confirm that on the list. Yep. There's a placeholder in the notes around providing a link to the COSI discussion. Brenda and Hannes, could one of you plug that link in?
Right, so let's go on to the next slide. Since it looks like the queue's empty. All right. So then there's a question about, is there anything else to be done? Because our goal is to be done by IETF 118, meaning so we can discuss any last things in that meeting. And so I guess here I wanted to open up to Hannes, since Hannes, you filed a couple of issues here. Is there anything else you think needs to be discussed in the meeting now, or is just doing stuff over the list sufficient for the ones you just filed yesterday? Since I've not had a chance to go through them, so.
Yeah. So I've reread the document very carefully, specifically with a focus on how to do the formal analysis, which Corey and I volunteered in an IRTF group to pick some examples, and we picked the deep protocol because it's kind of an interesting protocol in the way how it works. And so, yeah, I probably should have noticed some inconsistencies earlier, but I think the fact that I was looking for very specific sort of, how should I say that, for specific items in the description, that's why I spotted a few inconsistencies. It's nothing really dramatic, but I think it will help implementers in the end. I filed a few PRs alongside as well, and they should be fairly trivial, mostly editorial changes. Let me give me the link. This was GitHub.
Yeah, I didn't know if there's anything that needed to be discussed in a meeting in order to make rapid progress. Because if everything is just editorial, then we can probably deal with that on the list. But if there's things we want to verify consensus, or there's open questions on how to deal with, but since they were opened, 24 hours ago or less or whatever, I haven't had a chance to do myself.
I'm trying to find the GitHub repo for the people working.
I pasted the link into the chat.
Oh, okay. So I can maybe quickly.
And yeah, I see a bunch of wording pull requests.
Yeah, right. There's one issue that may be useful. Like we talk about encryption of three different things. One is the manifest payload specifically. That was the prime example, and that's already covered in the SUIT firmware encryption document. But then there's encryption of the SUIT report potentially, and also of the EAT. And there we can't directly use the work that we've done in the SUIT firmware encryption document, because that relies on the manifest. And so, but the text is some text in there is also applicable. So I created a PR to add that text. What changes is the context information structure, because we are encrypting different things. So I believe I've covered the respective text for the EAT in the deep document, but for the SUIT report, that text would have to be copied and adjusted in the SUIT report document, ideally. That's my understanding, because I think the EAT itself doesn't explain how the encryption really works.
Hannes, what's the issue number for the notes?
This is
367. It's the last link I just pasted in. I don't know if you want to project that on the screen just briefly. So I don't know how much time we want to spend on this compared to the
No, but,
other suit ones, but since this is a joint interim and this is, we thought that all technical issues were closed and we're just doing editorial passes here. But if there's any technical ones, then this is the tea part of the meeting before Nancy drops.
And Hannes, you said there was a pull request.
Yeah, I post
For
that
that?
into the chat window.
I didn't
Give
see
me a
the.
second.
Okay.
Give me a second.
Do you know the number of the PR? I could just click on it.
Yeah, it's 369.
369.
Text for ESDH. Go to the top.
Yep.
Second. Yeah. Yeah, it's not a dramatic amount of text. But you need to say something, I believe.
And so you said some of this will have to also get copied into suit report.
So I'm happy to adjust the text to also cover suit report, but since we're working in the group on suit report, I think it best fits there. And there in this text, for EAT, and I think the same is applicable to suit reports as well, is just to focus on a key exchange that uses public key encryption, and we have ESDH for that. So why not reuse that? That's my suggestion.
Any other thoughts?
I found Brendan in the queue and then he just dropped out. So don't know what that means.
Brendan, go ahead if you have a thought.
So I have added more text regarding encryption in the suit report and some CDDL to back it up. I'm not sure if this is going to cover the situation that Hannes has encountered or not. Essentially what I've done is reused the suit MTI profiles to construct a suit report that's integrity protected and confidentiality protected, or optionally confidentiality protected. I'm hoping that will help for this situation, but it might not. So I'm sure we'll get to that in a few minutes when we look at the suit report, but I'm hoping that will resolve this issue as well.
Okay, I can take a look at it and then in the meanwhile.
And it sounds like the two of you should probably get together and try to sort out what text is actually needed here.
Yep. So I guess just a call for TEAT folks to review the mostly editorial pull request that Hannes just posted. I'll take an action item to do that. But anybody else is welcome. But other than that, unless there's any other comments, then maybe you want to go back to the suit part of the agenda to go through the slides. If we finally get to the end and there's still spare time, which I'm guessing there won't be, but if there is, then we can always come back and look at some of the editorial pull requests from Hannes. So.
Is this, yeah, I'm back on the slides. Do you want me to advance?
No, that was it. The next steps was my last slide, and that was where I was just handing it over to Hannes for any discussion there. So we can go back to the main part of the agenda and go back to whoever's got the slides on manifest. Perfect. Maybe that's Hannes's slide deck, the status update.
Yep.
Thing.
Let me grab that one. Actually, it was just posted, right? So I need to grab that from.
It's up on the share.
Just one moment. All right. I think this is. All right, go ahead, Hannes.
Okay. Next slide. So talking about the suit manifest.
Hannes, do you want to turn on any video?
I could indeed. Oh, give me a second. Can you see me? Okay, perfect. Yeah, so quick update on this. So Roman, in case you missed it, provided a very detailed review of the SUIT manifest, and I guess we have to be quite thankful for his detailed comments. I went ahead and addressed half of the comments, which took me a little bit of time, and produced and submitted a version 23. And then I for the other comments, I created issues in the issue tracker. And if we go to the next slide, here's a kind of a screenshot on some of the issues. It's nothing, there's nothing, no sort of stopping comments in some sense. I think he's asking for more text clarifications in most parts. So that's definitely, after addressing all of those, I think we'll have a much more readable document in the end. There are also, what I noticed, and we also have a few old comments, and if there's time in the meeting, we should have a quick look at them, or at least Dave and Ken, to double check whether you still find these older comments, they were from last year, whether they are still relevant. And if not, we should sort of clean up the GitHub issue list, essentially. Okay, next slide.
Ken, Dave, are you willing to volunteer to do that? Go ahead, Ken.
I do.
Yep.
Great, thank you. I think I heard Dave as well.
Cool.
All right.
Thank you. Yeah, so I think what is still needed is to address the other open issues. Brendan is on the call. Had spoken to him. Hank and Orbit is not. They are not on the call, unfortunately. They haven't been active for a little while now. Didn't respond to my emails on this issue, so I don't know. So we'll have to, among the authors, make sure that we get those issues resolved and make the document more readable. Okay, next one. So I was trying to find out whether there's anything specifically I could present and discuss during this meeting, but there wasn't really anything besides wording improvements. Okay, but that doesn't mean it takes no time. Like you can easily work a day on improving the wording of a document. Next document is firmware encryption. We've spent a lot of time on that document. Because
Hannes, I think the next thing we have on the agenda is, oh yeah, is it firmware? Yeah, sorry, go ahead.
Okay, firmware encryption. Okay, next slide. Yeah, so we had at the last IETF meeting, we talked about this document, and we decided that we want to change the context information structure. And Lawrence and Ken have worked on the implementation part. Lawrence on the update in the DCOSI library, and Ken on the libc-SUIT library, so we actually can update the examples. I had email exchange with Ken, and he provided or posted the description of what he has been doing on the mailing list. I'll let him speak in a second. In the meanwhile, we have the chairs have issued the working group last calls, and we reached out to reviewers, because with such a document, it's always complicated to get reviewers. It's a very specialized field. And so luckily, we got a few people to volunteer. Marco is on the call, for example, Michael as well, who provided excellent feedback. And I included the links here. I believe I have addressed those comments, at least to a large extent. Michael's review only came in today. I just submitted a draft update, and I hope it made it to the list as well. And I need to think a little bit more about how to better summarize some of the key points that he raised. But I think with version 15, I think there's a much better readable version based on those review comments. So it was really good. Thank you, Michael and Marco, for the feedback. Really appreciated your time to look through this.
Yeah, and thanks, Hannes, for actively addressing comments as they were coming in.
Yeah, I wanted to get this moving forward because it has been a while already. We changed it many times. We worked on implementation, so it's good to get it done. Ken, do you want to talk a little bit about the updates you've made on the examples and the implementation?
Okay.
Not so much, but yeah, I want to provide you to verify the example manifest. So because my code is so complicated because it includes a lot of features. So I want to focus on so anyone can verify the example. So give me a time to implement it. Yeah, I want to create simple code to verify the manifest. Yeah, thank you.
Yeah, that would obviously be excellent. Yeah, there's one change that Ken has been making. We've been discussing this off list, which was related to the AES key wrap example. There, we in the complete example we had the AES key wrap, but it was protected, integrity protected using a digital signature, which is kind of maybe a little bit odd because the MTI algorithm is AES key wrap with a Mac protecting it. So that was the next update. The other one on the ESDH, of course, based on the changes in the context information structure, and the updated code in decode, so that those examples had to be regenerated as well. So yeah, it would be good if there's an easy way to create the example and verify them without a lot of hassle. But yeah, I don't know how long you need for this. So maybe till the next IETF meeting would be good also. Okay, next slide.
But this work is something that we could verify by the end of the next hackathon.
For example, yeah.
Yeah.
Specifically, if we also have the CDI implementation done and included. Okay,
that's a good target to shoot for.
Yeah. Yeah, just as a reminder, what we came up with is with the context information structure was essentially we had this. If you can see the string suit payload encryption, that's the part that is tailored according to the usage protocol. So for the payload encryption using for suit manifests, this is the string you're using. But for EAT, for example, or for a suit report, this would be different. So to have some distinguishability, and we asked the identities from the party info sender and the recipient, as we discussed already last time. So that should be all great implementation wise and also description wise. And I don't think I messed it up. And there was no comment on that. So okay, next one. Yeah, address remaining working group last call feedback. So as mentioned earlier, that's on track. It just got a private review from Ruth Derwig from Synopsys, who have been working with in Embassy in this microprocessor benchmarking organization, and he provided some further feedback, which I just received right before the call. So I will forward it to the mailing list and will address it as well. Haven't read through it yet. There was no time, and so yeah, get this going. There's still, I believe, a few reviews outstanding, and then, but I think the working group last call ends tomorrow or so.
Today.
Or today. Okay. Also good.
Are there others on the call that are planning on submitting a review? Michael, go ahead.
Another pass. Whether I'll find anything to submit, I don't know, but I was going to do another quick pass.
Thanks, Dave.
Mhm.
Michael?
Hi, Hannes, thanks. Yeah, I'm sorry to slide that in last night, the last minute. So I guess I just wanted to emphasize one comment, which I think was the only really important comment that I think others should think about, is that I think you described 5, maybe 6, I'm not sure, ways of encrypting things, whether you use common CEKs or different CEKs or different KEKs per device or not per device, or whether you derive them from the EH thing, and whether that's common across devices, the other side of that piece. So I there's one piece where I'm not sure if you're describing a profile or not, but anyway, there's between 5 and 6 of kind of methods, and what I'm really saying is that I really think that it would be worth naming them clearly, so that people can pick one. I'm picking the red one, the orange one, whatever. And I think that will help a lot for the eventual, security reviews, who will be, you'll be able to say also, this particular mode is really insecure, but is appropriate because, we're only updating firmware in lampposts or something. I don't know.
Mm.
So anyway,
Yeah,
I just wanted to share that with the group, that I think there, and I think that there's some brainstorming as to how to name them that is worthwhile doing as well.
Yeah, that was a good idea. It didn't, or names didn't jump to my mind instantly, so I think I have to think about that a little bit more. Also, the comparison that you were asking for, in kind of a comparison table for the security consideration section, that's also something I need to think about a little bit more.
I think that'll fall out really easily once you name them.
Maybe, yeah.
Right, because then you'll be just like, oh well, I know what I have to do, and I think that I think the data is actually really, really, really easy. I mean, one of the cases, if you compromise one device, right, you have the encryption key for everybody, and that's really easy to state, and it may be the idea that we hate that thing, but actually it's that's okay for some environments, right? And for other environments, and we're not talking about we're not talking about having a symmetric signing key for the firmware, right? So we're not going to, like, we know there's been problems with certain vendors at one point where you basically took apart one firmware and you got the signing key for the firmware, and you could spread it through their entire mesh network, right? So we're not talking about that kind of thing. It's just the privacy that we're dealing with, and there. So I think that, anyway, that's what my suggestion is.
Okay. Yeah, I don't want to phrase it that way, but it's just the privacy that is gone. But yeah, I know what you mean. Yeah, but thanks for the feedback. And the second bullet on the slide is about the examples based on the new updated code we were just talking about with Ken. Okay, that was this one.
Great. I just wanted to say, if anyone else has any additional feedback, please get that in as soon as possible, within the next few days, today if possible. And Hannes, do you have a sense of when you'll have the remaining updates done and the examples updated?
I think that's more a question to Ken, because he's so, like, there are two updates. One is the updates of the examples based on
hearing a response.
Test. Can you hear me? Can you hear me now? Does it work? Can you hear me?
Yes, Hannes. I could hear you the whole time. I don't know if Dave's having problems.
It looks like David's the one who's offline.
Okay.
All right.
Okay.
So we should probably move on to Brendan's presentations then. See, Dave was the one that had all the slides loaded. I don't have, Brennan, your slides. Do you have them handy?
I can share the slides if it'll
Yeah,
let me. Let's see.
It should. Okay, I think I just found them here.
Oh, okay,
No.
good.
No, I'm trying to figure out where's the button to share them into the.
Sorry, I dropped off. I can share again.
Okay, great. Go for it.
Before I do, though, I just have a question for Hannes. I'm not sure if it got answered. When do you think you'll have updates based on the current feedback done, as well as updating the examples?
So the examples is a question to Ken. I think Ken should answer that. And on the feedback, it depends a little bit on what further feedback will arrive. So Ruth's feedback is the next one, but then there may be, like, other people may have additional feedback which I still need to address. So if it's only Ruth's feedback, I think I can wrap that up this week. But yeah.
Okay, but within the next few weeks, it sounds like. Ken, any thoughts? Okay.
The question once more. Could you repeat the question once more?
I was asking about updating examples. Hannes referred to you.
Maybe I don't need to update the current example, but if we use AES CTR mode, it may take more than 2 weeks. So yeah, maybe after that I can get some reviews.
Okay, so we're looking at like end of September-ish.
Yes.
Okay. All right. Thank you, Brendan. Here's trust domains. Let me reshare my screen. There you go.
I'm waiting for it to come up. And there it is. All right, next slide, please. So Ken created a delegation example, which we've added in. We got reviews from Hannes and David Brown. There was a question raised around the title, specifically, is this really about trust domains? I think, honestly, that's mostly a philosophical distinction. I think that depending on how you look at it, trust domains can mean more than one thing. And I was trying to group the various extensions to the SUIT manifest around common cases, and that the contents of this document were mostly around trust domains, being whether those are trust domains on device or trust domains of authors. I guess that's essentially the difference. If there's a possibility for a clearer title, I'm happy to change it, but I'm not really sure what that would be. Hannes pointed out that the information around use cases was really important and needed to be up at the beginning in the introduction, so that people could understand what this draft was for. So specifically, these are the questions around the use cases for dependencies. So I've moved that up to the introduction now and put a reference in the dependency section. I think there's one outstanding question, which is whether the delegation chains are adequate and whether they are overlapping properly with CWT and X509 delegation chains. Now, Hannes mentioned that the X509 one is in particular contains quite a lot of text, whereas what's in this draft is extremely abbreviated by comparison. The intent here was that this should just be a list of certificates, whatever certificate means in this particular case, where each is authenticated by the next. So it wasn't intended to be a complicated thing. And if this isn't appropriate, then I think we need to address that now. Given that TEEP has taken a dependency on this, if delegation chains aren't done, I would recommend that we take them out and consider making another draft that does handle the delegation chain concept properly. I think I really need feedback from the list on, or from the participants, on whether these delegation chains make sense. As I said, it's just a list where each certificate authenticates the previous one up until you find a trust anchor. If there's any feedback on that, that would be really good. I think that's the end of what I've got for trust domains at the moment. So if that's...
Any thoughts?
Yeah, definitely. Thanks for the update.
All right. I don't hear any. I guess, Brendan, we need to take that question to the list. If you could post something, that would be appreciated. All right. Next, we have suit report, which, if no one minds, I would like to talk about that since there's a TEEP requirement on that, and then we'll do update management next.
That sounds good to me.
All right.
So again, Hannes had a comment on this, which was that there's not enough information in there to ensure interoperability of the report containers. So I've added a COSI profile for containing reports. What I mean by a COSI profile is essentially this thing where you and two COSI structures together. I think this is where I mentioned that SUIT MTI is probably missing a unifying declaration for all of the profiles. Next slide, please. Oh, wow, that's incredibly small. I thought it would be bigger. So that's just the definition there that I'd mentioned. But essentially all that it says is that there's a COSI sign 1. I'm not sure. I couldn't come up with a reason for having more than one recipient available for a COSI signature or a COSI MAC. It only made sense to me to sign it for the verifier, if that makes sense. So that's what I've done. If there's an objection to that, then it would be good to know that there's a use case for using COSI sign rather than COSI sign 1, or for using COSI MAC rather than COSI MAC 0. What I've done here is essentially just said that the payload has to either be a B-string wrapped suit report or a B-string wrapped COSI encrypt. And I put clarifying text in the draft to explain that the COSI encrypt 0 should only contain a B-string wrapped suit report as the encrypted version as its ciphertext. I think we've lost David again.
Okay, are there any comments or anything else on suit report? I think that was your last slide on suit report, right?
Yeah, it was.
And next up would be the update management.
And I mean, the real question on that one is whether Hannah
And
specifically has any commentary on whether this would be helpful in resolving the issue that he raised against Teep.
Yeah, hi. Brent, that's definitely better, but I still think you need to copy the text in there. Happy to create a pull request to your repository to specifically, like this is not a huge amount of text. Like we're talking about maybe 2 paragraphs here, to just add the necessary text to get to single out the use of ESDH and to change the context information structure, and then I think you are done, because
Yeah,
that's
you're
it.
right. I don't have the context information structure. I do effectively have ESDH, and the reason I say that is because I'm pulling in the suit MTI, which means that you'll already get ESDH.
Okay, cool. That's good. Yeah, I think you are 95% there.
Okay, good. Okay, so we have suit
yeah, we're down to
update management next.
yeah. Why don't you share your slides, Brennan? Given that we've only got 10 minutes.
Yeah, let me see if I can do that. I don't think there's a way the ask to share slides isn't going to work in this scenario, is it? I'm going to have to do a screen share instead.
Here one.
Does that work? Does the ask to share slides system work in this scenario, or do I need to share my screen? Excellent.
Hopefully that answers your question.
That answers my question. Brilliant. That'll be it. Perfect. Now we have to find where it starts. Let's see. There it is. Okay, good. So yeah, this is a really short one. There were a couple of missing keys for override multiple and copy params. I'm hoping that this will resolve the remaining outstanding issues. I'm not aware of any further ones, so I'm happy to have this progress to working group last call if no one has anything else to add.
So this one had a working group last call that completed August 14th.
Oh, right.
I didn't actually see, and maybe somebody else can do a quick check, but I didn't see if there were actually any comments posted during working group last call.
I didn't see any.
So maybe we should ask, have people read this draft? Because, you know, I mean, we could be done, but we did a working group last call. How else do we get people to read it or to say, yes, I think it's ready. So, okay, if we can get a person or two to just say, yes, I think it's ready, nothing to discuss. Somebody other
Well,
than
how
Brendan.
about I turn that around instead and say, Dave, you already reviewed this, and we made changes based on your review to add additional file permissions. In addition to that, Akira, was it Akira? No, it was Ken. Ken reviewed this one as well. And Ken looked at it and spotted the missing override multiple and copy params keys. And I think he spotted a couple of other things. And I fixed those in response to his, he made pull requests, which I've merged as a result of that review. So I know that there have been reviews, but those were a while ago.
So I'm the document shepherd on this one, which is why I'm kind of poking here, because I'm going to do a document shepherd write-up. I don't think I've done that one yet on this one. I don't think I've done the document shepherd write-up. I've not done the write-up yet. So that is my next step, is I'm going to do the document shepherd write-up. So I have the action on this one unless somebody else does. Mm-hmm. That's why I'm kind of poking anybody other than me, given that I have to do the document shepherd pass. If there's anybody else that can comment that says, yes, I've addressed that, then that will help me in doing the document shepherd write-up, because I don't want to say there was working class call and there was complete silence, right? I want to say something better than that when I do the document shepherd write-up. That's why I'm poking on this. So,
Dave, could we maybe just poke the list and ask that question?
So Brennan, can you remind me again, who was it that you got comments from on past versions? It was me, I know, but who else?
Yeah, it was definitely you and Ken.
Okay.
I'll just pull up the GitHub and have another look.
Yeah, that'd be great.
Because I'm
'Cause
fairly certain that was it.
I don't. Did we have anything else on the agenda, or was this given we did reordering? I thought Dave, was this the last one?
I think this is the last
I think
one.
this is okay. Great. Just making sure that we have to budget time. We're down to this and any other business. So let's go ahead and do that, Ken. Go ahead and do that. Brendan, was it Ken that was the other person that reviewed it? I don't remember.
That's what I heard, Dave.
Okay.
Yeah,
Okay. So anyway, I have the next action item on this one as far as the document shepherd write-up. But anybody else that wants to weigh in and says yes, it looks good would help me.
Yeah, and did you agree to poke the list about that?
Yeah.
Okay, great.
Yeah, it's just been you and Ken at the moment.
Okay. Ken, you're still on. Do you have any thoughts on this one right now? I mean, do you think it's good? I mean, you had comments before. Have you had a chance to look, or should I give you time to just spot and verify that your previous comments have been addressed? Question to Ken.
Go ahead, Ken.
Hi. Okay. Yeah. I've tested the features in this document. So for an implementer, the document is okay. But I think okay. But there might be some need to be updated. So I will check it precisely again.
Okay. Thank you, Ken. I appreciate it. All right.
I guess I should clarify on this one. I don't think it can be complete at this stage. I strongly suspect that there will be things it's missing discovered in the future. If that does indeed happen, that's actually a good thing. It's a sign people are using SUIT quite a lot, because you're not going to find things that are missing from it if you don't use it. So that's. I would not believe for a second that it is complete, or that we could guess what it will need to be complete at this stage.
Is there any reason to hold up publication? Because you can always do, addendums or deltas and things in a separate document, right? Okay. Because
yeah, exactly.
It's better to get something out there right now that's a baseline, even if you rev it or extend it in the future. So.
Yeah, although a lot of extra extensions can make it kind of complex to implement. But it sounds like what I'm hearing is there aren't any obvious additions to add at this time.
Yep. Okay.
It's called a proposed standard for a reason.
That's right, Michael. All right. So I think that brings us to the end of the agenda, or at least to the any other business section.
Indeed. Any other business?
It also brings us to the end of the time. Thank you, Michael. You did a great job. The one spot where you lost the thread, I think I fixed it.
All right. Well, great, everyone. I'm not hearing any other business. I think that concludes the meeting for today. Thanks again for everyone working on drafts and participating today. We'll probably talk with you the next IETF. Take care.